Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. This is Pat from Like Attracts Like Evolution, and today we are going to be talking about or diving into the energy of doing to justify value. So many of us in this journey have been conditioned to believe that their value and their worth, or their ability to believe that they have some relevance to exist, comes from the actions that they take in the world. We're conditioned from a very, very young age with all of the different times that people would be like, well, what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you doing today? What did you do today? It's all kind of this narrative around an understanding that we develop or attach to, which says that if I am at rest, if I'm not performing, if I'm not producing, if I am not doing, then I do not possess any value of any kind. And we could kind of look at our friends here, our little cats and some of our animals that know that their value or their worth has nothing to do with what it is that they are doing. That this is all an egoic construct, some type of an energy form or story developed by what we would call the separate self. It's the lowercase s self. The ego part that believes it's a character and again, it's separate from the world, it's separate from other people, and therefore needs to validate or justify its worth in the world, typically through what we're conditioned to believe, doing through different behaviors or actions to validate or justify our worth. The second belief that the ego or the doer holds is that outcomes are the reason that I am happy. My happiness depends on outcomes. So what that means is that anytime we would find ourselves being at rest, we are not able to allow ourselves to be happy because there's no outcome. There's no thing happening in the world that we can attach to say that this is the reason that we feel this way. The third belief that the ego has is that it has this need to control how things happen. It needs to control the layout. It needs to control the process, if you will, in order for it to feel as though it is okay. So it's not just doing in the world, but it's controlling what it is that you're doing so that you can get some value or worth, or so that you can reveal your value and worth to you and then therefore others. So this is the journey that we go on. Many of us have been conditioned to believe this idea that we're not valuable unless we're doing something. So if you've ever been on vacation and found yourself not able to rest, or when you are at rest, without distractions, the mind and its narrative starts to come in and starts to convince you that you're a piece of without doing something. Well, what are you going to do now? The question we can ask to kind of help relieve ourselves from this is, who is it that gave you that? Whose projection is that? Whose belief system is that? Who in your life gave you the impression that you needed to do something or to perform in order to be of value to them in some way? Was it you? Did you determine that you needed to perform for someone else because you didn't feel as though you fit in if you didn't? So by asking ourselves these questions, we can start to see that the attachment, the ownership, it's not ours. That it's something that we've been holding on to, this idea that we need to perform or produce to be valuable, but it's not ours. We can actually let go of it. And by let go, all that means is we no longer agree. So therefore, when it begins to present itself to us, we aren't attached through guilt or fear in a way that would convince us we need to look at it again. I feel terrible, so let me look at it, what it's saying again. So this is literally what letting go means. It's not something you have to do. It's an agreement that you have to have with yourself, that the belief system that's no longer serving you holds no value. You don't agree with it. So anytime the thing says, or your mind says, I need to do this in order to be valuable. I am bored, therefore I must find something to do. Instead of letting the boredom actually allow you to realize that there is something that you can do beyond that boredom, and we just have to let it come in versus trying to fight our way out of it. If we can let ourselves let that go and let ourselves sit in a place where we are content and realize our value without doing, we can shift to the next part of this process. We can shift to the next phase of the game of self-realization. And so here's what happens. Once someone goes on this journey, whether it's spiritual or meditative or otherwise, we are looking to shift through or away from the egoic beliefs of separation and incompletion that say we're not valuable unless we're doing. That's not true. It's not an objective truth. It's just a story that we've told. So we're trying to find our value and our worth away from that story. But there's another part of that story that creeps in that says, hey, if you can find your value and worth without doing something, everyone will think you're lazy. You're not going to do anything. You're just going to sit and meditate in your bedroom all day. You're not going to actually get out and do anything, because we've just revealed to ourselves that probably 80 to 90% of what we've been doing in the world, it might not be things we love to do. It's things we were doing to get validation or some kind of accolades or appreciation or respect from someone else that we thought we had to perform for. So how much of what we're doing and our behaviors in the world are actually coming from the energy of love, of what we love to do? What are you doing in your life that represents what you love to do? Or are we doing a lot of things sacrificing ourself and what we love in order to do something for someone else because we've been told a story that says that we need to, or that we're not valuable unless we do? So the next part of this, and the fear that comes in, is, well, if I find my value and worth just sitting on the couch and I'm not stressed or sitting in an anxious state, then I'm fearing, the voice of fear comes up and says, well, then I'm not going to do anything. I'm fearing that I'm not going to want to do anything. And that is literally just the voice and story of fear that is working to keep you where you are, because it's a defense mechanism. It's actually a protective mechanism we put in place to protect us from going outside of our comfort zone, because that requires us to go into the unknown, and the unknown is terrifying to the ego. But it is absolutely liberating and complete freedom to who you truly are. So again, you can see how this works. We shift from the belief system of the separate self and ego that believes it needs to do and perform to be valuable. You realize that simply because you exist, you are valuable. You are literally value. You are literally love. You are literally creation. Literally. You literally can't deny it. When you can accept that as being true and your value from that point, then you will break the conditioning patterns and behaviors that kept you in loops of doing things that you didn't want to do to get your value. And here's what will happen. You will ascend in awareness. You will ascend in, we'll say, frequency. You will ascend in resonance closer to this truth of who you are. The higher you go in awareness of your sense of self-perception, from the limited character that's a victim to all of these things in the external world that it's separate from, to one with life and creation and the experience of life itself, you will have access to your own inner wisdom and guidance. And from there, and only from there, will you really authentically be able to know what lights you up, what you kind of have defined for yourself to be your own purpose, how you can give back in the world. You will have access to that once you let go of this need to work so hard and suffer through these experiences to justify or validate your worth. You will actually be able to sit in a place where you can let this guidance from within come to you, or you can line up to it, however you see this in your mind working. And from there, here's the trick. You will then be ready, and there will be no stopping you. You will take inspired action from that place. So the fear of you won't do anything if you realize your value and worth, that's the voice of the ego that believes that it's not valuable unless it's working, and it's trying to trick you into staying in that place. Because when you stay in that place, you're giving your attention to that voice, and therefore it exists and it's alive through you. When you shift your attention and awareness from that story and you dive into this new potential of realizing that there's a new reality, it almost feels like you're dying. There's a part of you that is dying. So what we can do is understand that you are valuable as you are, but in order to realize that, you have to stop doing in order to justify your value. And from there, if you can, this is the challenging part where some people experience the void. In that void where you're testing yourself to see if you really believe that you're valuable without doing, if you can do this long enough, and you will be the only one to dictate how long it needs to take, you will start to get these little nuggets of inspiration. And if you can follow those without guilt or fear or shame in some way attached, you will start to see the expansive nature of reality as it opens up as a reflection of all of the inner work that you have been doing on your journey. And that is what I wish for each and every single one of you. May 1st, we are doing it again, the 21-day transformation and manifestation challenge. I'm really, really so excited for this round. It's going to be the last time we do this particular challenge. So if you haven't been a part of it yet, I would love to see you there. And if you have been a part of it, then you know how fun this is. This is not something that you have to actively dive into. You can actually do this on your own, at your own pace, behind the scenes, or you can jump into the live Q&As and hopefully you can get as much out of this as possible. I'll be there for you every single step of the way. It's starting May 1st. There will be a link below wherever you're listening to this where you can join. So I really hope to see you there. It's with that I leave you. As always, have an amazing day, a wonderful night, and I'll see you next time.